The terrifying Rushdi building that located in the most important and famous area in Alexandria city in Egypt. No one could live in it. Many legends revolve around it that it haunted. If anyone tries to enter it, he and everything belonging to him are thrown from the windows of the building to the street. Till this day, the building is still feared by everyone, and no one knows its secret definitively. The construction date of the building dates back to 1961, based on the license stipulating the construction of a ground floor and 10 upper floors. However, this was modified in 1987 to establish a tourist hotel with a commercial center, a supermarket, a cafeteria, a tourist office and a restaurant, and a conference center and wedding hall. The building is still under construction and was not inhabited by anyone except a worker, his wife and children, who all manage the garage. While the owner of the building contented himself with making a room for him in the entrance, which consisted of a counting office. What happened after the construction of the property? The haunted house of Alexandria is located in Abu Qir Street. The house from the outside consists of 4 floors surrounded by a closed iron fence, and all the balconies and windows in the mysterious building are also closed. The house from the outside inspires fear in the hearts of those who contemplate and feel at first glance that you are in front of something out of the ordinary. And if you were encouraged and approached, you might feel an internal phone whispering in your ear to stay away from this place. A few meters away, you find a small shop owned by Hassan, an old man over 60 years old, sitting on a chair, knowing the history of this house, witnessing what happened in it tens of years ago. This house was built in 1961 and its owner, the Greek Khawaja Parties, who built it and brought his wife and 5 children from Greece to live in it. But a week not passed before Bardas went out on a fishing trip with his children, and none of them came back again, as the boat sank with those in it. His wife was forced to sell the house and traveled to her country. So Mohsen Bey, a famous timber shop owner at the time, bought the building, and decided to rent apartments and live in one of them. The family of Mr. Zarif, the new resident, rented an apartment on the 1st floor, and 2 days later, a huge fire broke out in the apartment, which completely destroyed it. Mr. Zarif died in the fire, so the family left the apartment and closed it. As for the 2nd floor, a doctor rented it, and before he opened his clinic, after he prepared it and entered his office and equipment, he fell to the ground and died. He was hit by a car while crossing the road. As for the 3rd and 4th floors, they were rented by a foreign company, and days did not pass until the company suffered heavy losses, so it went bankrupt and its owner was forced to borrow it to no avail, and he was subject to imprisonment. He committed suicide by hanging himself. The story that was the reason for the fame of this architecture. In 1990, the new resident was a young man about to get married. He rented the 2nd floor and brought engravers and workers to prepare the apartment. One of them told Hassan, the owner of the small shop, that he heard strange noises coming from the bathroom, and the strangest thing was that after they had finished finishing the apartment, the groom came to receive it and found red spots on the walls, but he did not care because the wedding was hours later. In the middle of the night, the groom and his bride came after the wedding and entered the apartment. Minutes later, people found the groom and his bride in the street sleeping and unconscious, so people gathered around them. And after the people had seen them, the groom and his bride told what no human had imagined. The groom said, "After I and my wife entered the apartment and I entered the bathroom to take a shower, I was surprised by the water turning red, and I knew that blood was coming from the tap. I was terrified, and my breath stopped, and suddenly I heard my wife screaming loudly. So I went out quickly to find a black cat standing on the bed, and it was the size of a big dog. It was screaming in a terrifying voice. Then it jumped in front of us and flew into the air and disappeared. Then the walls caught fire, So we went out to the hall and found the body of a woman without a head sitting on the sofa with her head lying on the ground and making a very terrifying sound. And strange. My wife fainted from fright. As for me, I carried her and ran to the door to get out of the apartment, but I could not find the door in its place. The place of the door was a black man along the door with large fangs opening his mouth wanting to swallow us. I couldn't help myself and cried out. My wife and I found myself without clothes on the street. There are some people who witnessed some of what happened in the architecture. In the beginning, Professor Ali Muhammad says, "A while ago I was driving my car in front of the property to take one of my relatives home, who lives next to the property, and suddenly I saw a gathering of people. We got out of the car to check on the situation. We found a man and his wife who were naked and wrapped in bed sheets, screaming. Next to them were the furniture of the house, and everything they had was completely broken and scattered around them. In fact, it was strange at first, and everyone kept wondering what had happened to them." Another witness, Hadi Ahmed, says, "I lived next to the property. And after the strange events that happened with this property and what I saw, I thought I'd look inside to try to discover what's inside. The sun is shining on all the properties, except for this property, so I went to the balcony of my house next to it to try to look inside it, and I saw the darkness of the ankle, as if we were at night, even though it was morning, and I felt a strange and terrifying feeling as if someone was inside. I immediately came back." And adds, "All the neighbors in the building got hurt. My neighbors have children. And one day I heard their child screaming as if she had seen something her mind couldn't believe. I immediately went to their house to check it out. The father opened to me terrified. I asked him what happened to them. He told me that he was in his room and his wife was preparing lunch and his little girl was playing in the house and she was screaming for no reason. When he ran out to find out what happened to his child, he found her screaming and crying and pointing her finger at the table. He didn't understand what happened to her, so I went into the house and we calmed the girl down a bit until she was reassured, and she started telling us what happened. Said the little girl, "I was playing at the table while I was turning around it. Suddenly a large, terrifying black entity with red eyes appeared in front of me, and it was trying to catch me, and when I screamed, it disappeared." In fact, I was not surprised by what the little girl told me. Most of us suffer from this building. A neighbor in the property tells him that the Holy Quran does not stop his voice from his house, and the reason for that is that he used to see scary phantoms and voices at night in his apartment. All he had to do was seek the help of the noble Quran so that these demons would not enter his house. He added that since that day he has not seen any ghosts again in his house. The property guard's wife says at the beginning of her speech, "At the beginning of my husband's receipt to guard this property, I did not know anything about it. One winter day, I was peeling some potatoes to prepare food for lunch, and after I finished peeling them, I threw the peel into one of the drains next to the garage. And when I started throwing it, I found a lady's head coming out of the drain and speaking to me a strange language that I don't know. So I screamed, threw my head, and ran away." She added, "We are used to these things. We often hear the sound of things falling or loud screams, all coming from the property." She said too, some people from other countries come to the property as a tourist attraction or something unfamiliar and strange. Hassan says the owner of the small shop next to the property. One of the elders came one day and said that these allegations are false and baseless. He challenged everyone and went up and brought his furniture to the property and lived in it. And he spent a week living his life in a normal way. Everyone thought we were wrong, but soon he changed his mind. On the morning of the 7th day, when the old man was in the property, we found him under the property on the floor and next to his furniture, and it was destroyed. This old man appeared to me signs of extreme fear, as if he was in another world. Before he could say anything, He died instantly. Hassan adds, "One day a police officer challenged everyone to, and he doesn't believe in the existence of such horrific events. Indeed, he went up to the property and slept in it for a whole day. But on his second day, we found him screaming and babbling unknown words, and he lost his mind completely, and until now no one knew where he was." And in an investigation of accident news about the property, the newspaper reported that after that incident, the security forces closed the property completely. This architecture will remain a source of terror and confusion for all. As for the reasons for what is happening inside the building, some of them say that its Sudanese guard was the one who harnessed the jinn in it and the jinn inhabited it from that day. And some of them say that the partner of the owner of the land, who is Moroccan, is the reason when he prepared the jinn and worked black magic and placed it on the four sides of the property and inhabited by the tribes of the jinn because of his fighting with the partner. Although more than 60 years have passed since its construction, however, the building located in the Rushdi area is still empty of residents. But in 2012, a group of adventurous young men penetrated the architecture and climbed to all the floors and filmed this event on video to reassure people that the strange events in architecture had ended. These guys tell people that the black magic is over, that the building is habitable, and all the evil inside the building is over. After this day, the owner of the building sold the building to a famous businessman who in turn reconstructed it and succeeded in selling all the apartments inside it. None of the residents complained of any strange or troublesome things that happened to them. If you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe in channel cause it's hundreds of new horror true stories waiting you.